and I often get confused. For example, I still don't understand why Miley Cyrus has a career when she often sounds like a dead owl with the flu. I also don't understand how there's a sequel to Joker coming out starring that Bintu sang Poker Face. But lads, I'm gonna go through every Premier League club and find one player who really confuses me, and let me know if they confuse you too. And hit the subscribe button, it would mean the world to me. Mean the world to me? Sounds so very Disney and Aladdin. I wouldn't blame you for getting sick on your phone. Right, let's go. Arsenal Ben White. Ben White is a mystery. Everything about this man confuses me. Forget the fact he just looks like some nightclub geezer who spends every 3 months applying for mid in Chelsea. This is a £50 million centre back who this season is excelling as an out of position right back for an Arsenal team who are top of the league. And don't forget, this is a man who just quit the World Cup early, and we still have no clue why. Chucking the fact that he actually likes to be called Benjamin White, which makes him sound like such a posh toff that you'd expect him to have been raised in a palace where he's got butlers on hand to feed him 5-star mushroom soup. But no, this is a man who, if he wasn't a footballer, would be a gardener. He said he doesn't even like football and has never sat down to actually watch a game. But how? Surely to be this good at football, you need to be obsessed with the sport. I am. And you are too, but we're nowhere near good enough to be in the Premier League. But this guy, he's never sat down to watch a Champions League match in his life. He makes it sound like he'd sooner pay a fat nun to rub shampoo in his eyes than to actually watch an entire game. And I don't understand just how. So are you telling me that when he was at school, this guy wouldn't have known what a Zidane was? He probably thought that Gary Lineker was just some old bloke who sold crisps on the telly. Every time his classmates brought in their match magazines, he probably just dribbled sick into his yogurt pot, instead wanting to talk about Digimon. Well, you would expect such a nerd to then be awful at PE. I mean, if this guy was spending every Tuesday night watching Desperate Housewives instead of Champions League football, again, you would assume that if you pass him the ball, it would be like tossing a grenade to a cat. But yet somehow, he would have been the best footballer in the school. It just baffles me. Aston Villa, Ashley Young. It's not just me. I know Ashley Young confuses you too. How could he not? This is a guy who for years was treated like some absolute muck sandwich flop at Manchester United. Just an example of another overpriced, expensive, average English winger. I mean, but alright, Young could have been sold after 3 seasons at the club. The man spent 9 years at the biggest club in England, making nearly 300 appearances, many of which were as a right back. Martin O'Neill, while at Aston Villa, used to compare Young to Messi. Yeah, Young actually marked Messi in a Champions League match. This man is 37. You would expect him to be a fat chunk of leftover pizza in the Championship with Stoke. No. Since leaving Old Trafford, he went to one Serie A playing for Inter Milan as a left wing back. He's already made a further 50 appearances for Villa in just 18 months. You would think this fellow would be a bloated toad at his age, and that he'd have the stamina of Peppa Pig's dad. And yet he has completed the full 90 minutes in the Villa shirt 12 times this season. How does he do it? This is a man who joined Watford in 1995. Does he eat nothing but protein shakes and rice? Has he not touched the bar of chocolate since 2004? Weirdly, Ashley Young is probably one of the greatest professionals in Premier League history. He just is. Ridiculous. Bournemouth, Darren Randolph. Darren Randolph? What are you doing? I have respect for this man. I mean, he's got 50 Ireland caps in goal. This is a lot for a guy who once played for Birmingham in an 8-0 loss at home to Bournemouth. Go back to 2014. Did anybody think that Bournemouth would one day be employing the opposition goalie who they just took 8 goals past? It doesn't make sense. It's like asking out a woman who once got sick in your face down the local post office. It's similar to how Leicester City, weirdly, bought both Yannick Vestergaard and Ryan Bertrand, again, after the Southampton 9-0. So that alone is weird, but also Mark Travers is Randolph's countryman and 12 years younger than him. He's also someone who's played in a 9-0 defeat this season, and so was understandably dropped, and now probably has the confidence of soggy ear wax. The last thing he needs is Randolph turning up, breathing down his neck and adding more competition. I mean, that's last week. Gary O'Neill picked both Travers and Randolph on the bench. So right now, the insecure Mark probably doesn't even know if he's number 2 anymore. Honestly, at the risk of sounding like the sidemen, just go home, Randolph. Yeah. Does that joke make me down with the kids? Brentford, Romeo Beckham. Why do Brentford employ David Beckham's son? I mean, why is a Premier League club having to pull off some Instagram publicity stunt? And this is a 20-year-old man who took 6 years off football after leaving Arsenal to just play tennis. Brighton, Tarek Lamptey. What does everybody see in Tarek Lamptey? Can anyone please tell me? Go on, let me know in the comments. He is a Brighton right wing back who can run fast. Great, so you're just the mouse off Tom and Jerry. The media links to Arsenal and Chelsea were huge when he was still English. Notice how the minute he switches allegiances to Ghana, and instead he's just been offered a grubby loan move to Sporting Lisbon. Yeah, instead Hector Bellerin took that job, and he's more washed up than Leona Lewis's career. Lamptey doesn't start for Roberto De Zerbi's team at all. This guy who's completed 90 minutes of Premier League football just 19 times ever in his life. Yeah. He's nearly 23. Fair enough, he does play like a busy bee who drinks steroids for lunch. The man works hard. But for a kid who spent 12 years being coached at Chelsea, am I the only one who expected a little more quality on the ball? Chelsea, Thiago Silva. Thiago Silva continues to confuse my brain. This is a man who should not be doing what he's doing. He has been a professional centre back since 2002. This is a man who joined FC Porto just weeks after Jose Mourinho had won them the Champions League. He was supposed to replace Ricardo Carvalho, but I mean, he never made his debut. Instead moved to Dynamo Moscow on loan, where he nearly died from tuberculosis. And he decided to retire at 19, but his mum persuaded him not to. So right there, in that moment, if someone were to tell this sick teenage kid that he would be Chelsea's best defender when he's nearly 39, I mean, what? Lads, this is a nearly 40-year-old man who spent 8 years of his career in the pudding French league. Surely that should have made him soft. I mean, the man spent half his life hanging around with David Luiz. Surely that's about like a pregnant mum inhaling secondhand smoke on the bus. You would assume that by now Thiago is a wobbly, cumbersome teddy bear who'd be eaten alive by the physicality and the pace of the Premier League. But no. He was only given an initial 1-year deal at Chelsea. That was nearly 3 years ago, and he's since helped them win the Champions League and Club World Cup. None of this makes any sense. Weirdly, he replaced Paolo Maldini in AC Milan, and he's gone on to last as long. But I mean, Maldini looks like someone who does yoga and eats vegetables every day. Thiago Silva, wouldn't be surprised if it came out that he eats 3 donuts for breakfast. Crystal Palace Michael Olise. So, is Michael Olise the next world star or not? I haven't made up my mind. This kid, at times, looks like another world superstar. Some of the tricks, the skills, the first touch, the dramatic wonder goals, the absolute Balotelli-esque nonchalance. He looks like an absolute megastar in waiting. But part of me just sees a future Ravel Morrison. Let's not forget, this guy has been on the books of Arsenal, Chelsea, and Man City, and yet he still wound up cuffed out to Reading age 15. There is something those clubs didn't like about him. This guy is an attacking winger, and yet has only 4 Premier League goals to his name. He's nearly 22, and what's even weirder is that he's English born and bred, but plays for France under 21s, and he isn't being linked to any major club. I hope I'm wrong, but despite that big fat talent in his boots, I actually see this guy being a wasted troop, riding away from some pub team in Norway by the time he's 29. Everton Alex Iwobi. I don't understand Alex Iwobi. Part of me thought he was always just some Arsenal Academy kid who never really broke into the team. That this was JG Okocha's nephew, who was never really given his chance at the Emirates. I'm sorry, what? Do I have mashed banana between my ears? Because weirdly, this guy was only 1 game shy of 150 appearances for the Gunners. In his last season, he played over 50 times. Is he good or is he wet pudding? I still don't know. For years, we were all conditioned into thinking he's a 30 million fat waste of cash for Everton. But now, he's arguably their best player. The man is a tireless workhorse in midfield. He actually looks good on the ball. I thought he was the shame of the Okocha family. But I mean, let's be real here. This sentence might make me sound like a Jake Paul fanboy, but JJ was a bit overrated. Don't forget, he spent the last 6 years of his career at Bolton, Qatar, and Hull. He spent his mid-20s playing in Turkey, and then for an average PSG. While Iwobi, he's made over 200 Premier League appearances, and when I see him play, part of me thinks, did Arsenal sell him too soon? Honestly, this season, he could have done the role that Fabio Vieira's done. Right now, he's probably better than Emil Smith-Rowe, Fulham, Layvin Kurzawa. Layvin Kurzawa, what has happened to your career? What he's done is unforgivable. Does this man not realize how many people would chop their ears off to be in his position? This is a guy who had it all. He was a big money left back for PSG. Despite being a defender, this man was scoring a Champions League hat-trick against Anderlecht. And yet now, he's a washed-up Teletubby on Fulham's bench. He played 45 minutes against Newcastle in October, then 90 minutes against Newcastle in January, then 1 minute against Chelsea, and that's it. In the Premier League. I mean, he was given 3 games in the FA Cup, and weirdly, despite playing left back, scored against both Hull and Sunderland, and yet still can't get into Marco Silva's team. What confuses me even more is that he should have the appetite of a starving koala bear, because last season he was frozen out of the PSG squad for an entire year. So does he now just have the fitness of a diabetic pig, or is he now just a comfy millionaire who no longer cares about the sport? Honestly, what a waste. Leeds Ilha Melier. I can't pin Ilha Melier down. I don't know. Help help me out. Part of me thinks that watching such a young goalkeeper in the Premier League, I mean lads, he's made over 100 Premier League appearances before he's even turned 24. He looks like someone who probably got his first shaving set at Christmas. I wouldn't have asked it for this guy to be a shy little boy who's yet to kiss a girl on the cheek. He's a Premier League #1. And yet still probably writes letters to Santa Claus. So part of me thinks that we are witnessing greatness. That he's going to be the French Iker Casillas. But then he'll make some horrible howlers, like neglecting his front post to allow a nearly 40-year-old right back from Killy Becks to score. And I start to think that just because he's young doesn't mean he's going to be world class. I mean, Tim Krul was the #1 Premier League goalkeeper for Newcastle, aged 22. And he's gone on to have a career so unimpressive, it would probably be overshadowed by dentists and cocktail parties. Paul Robinson was also a young #1 for Leeds in the Premier League. And then he just mid-table mushed for Tottenham, Blackburn and Burnley. And for England, scuffed a back pass into his own net. Another ex-Leeds goalie, Jack Butland, was a young Premier League #1 for Stoke. And yet he's now a Manchester United cheerleader who probably stinks of whiskey and tears. So I don't know, is Meslier the future Buffon or the future Tim Krul? Some lanky Dutch cauliflower who grew up to peak at Norwich. Lester Patsandaka. I don't know what to make of Patsandaka. It would be easy for me to write him off as a big money Leicester City flop. I mean, having been a goal machine at Red Bull Salzburg, he now can't even get in the team. But he has had moments in a Leicester shirt, like when he scored 3 goals in 4 games earlier this season, or last season in Europe when he scored 4 goals away at Spartak Moscow. He also scored in 3 consecutive games in the league. So I don't want to say that he's some fat Zambian weasel who's been a disaster flop, because he can still go on a run of goals and make me look like an unintelligent bore. Sorry, Postman Pat, but I still don't know. Liverpool James Milner. James Milner is a freak. This is a guy who was scoring goals in the Premier League before I was properly into football. This guy is before my time. And I'm a grown man who stinks of veggie armpits. Milner is almost like a science experiment. I'm half convinced he's just some cyborg machine built in a lab. Just a very boring Frankenstein. Because this man has been playing week in, week out in the biggest league in world football for 21 years. Some of his ex-teammates are in their 50s. He's played for monster clubs like Leeds, Aston Villa, Man City. Fine. If he'd left the Etihad in 2015 to then wind down for someone like Hull, then that would make sense. What doesn't make sense is that he already had 13 weary years of Premier League football under his belt, and yet has still found the stomach to go on and play over 300 games for Liverpool during the most glorious era in 30 years. He's nearly played half as many games for Liverpool as Stevie G. Milner has always confused me. For example, seeing him still playing for the England under-21 kids 7 years after making his Premier League debut was bonkers to me. It would be like seeing Russell Brand on the local school disco begging teenagers for a kiss. But the fact is that the scruffy boy from Leeds, someone who joined Newcastle with a face full of acne, as if he's looking like he just rubbed a pepperoni pizza on his chin, he's gone on to make 919 career appearances. By all rights, his body should be an exhausted trained shell, like someone who's just given birth to triplets on a plane. And yet, no, 2 weeks ago, he was on the pitch against Real Madrid. He's won everything there is to win in sport. Just wow. Man City Kyle Walker, brilliant defender, world-class right back, but what a weird man. He's got more scandals than Logan Paul. Honestly, put it away, Kyle. Man United Donny van de Beek. What is the deal with Donny van de Beek? I know he's injured right now, but do you know? Is he just another Eredivisie flop? This man who nearly moved to Real Madrid. He could have been the Dutch Toni Kroos. And yet, he's been at Manchester United for nearly 3 years now, and what's he done? Last season, he failed on loan at Everton. And even with Erik ten Hag, his former Ajax comfy blanket in charge, he doesn't look like he's in his plans. So is he really just an overrated beanbag who belongs to a team like Galatasaray? I don't know. Newcastle Paul Dummett. Paul Dummett is like a lovable beetle. The man never seems to get flushed away. This is a guy who joined Newcastle United in the year 2000. He only signed for them 4 years after they bought Alan Shearer. And despite being a limited defender who stinks in the championship, he is still there, even when they're now the richest club in sport. Not only that, but the Saudi owners gave him a new contract in May. So it's not as if when contract negotiations come around, the man just locks himself in the toilet for the afternoon. No, the club still want him there. Another thing that confuses me is that he is a born and bred Geordie, and yet has 5 caps for Wales through his granddad. Okay, fair enough. If you wanted to declare for Wales, go and play for Wales. You are a Premier League defender, and you have been for 10 years. You will play a lot of games in a Welsh shirt. So I thought Chris Gunter has 109 caps, and he had 1 Premier League season in his life when he got relegated with Reading 10 years ago. But Dummett, he barely played for Wales, and actually threw his toys out of the pram by retiring from international duty in 2017, then returning in 2018, and then retiring again in 2019. Make up your mind, Paul. Are you Welsh or not? Nottingham Forest, Jesse Lingard. I know Jesse Lingard has had his off-field problems, but he still confuses me greatly. I remember when this Manchester United misfit went to West Ham on loan, and I laughed. This kid was a burnt-out TikToker who is now about as useful as a sponge soaked in sick. No, he then scores 9 goals in 16 games, making me look like a brain-dead mushroom pie. So then he moves to Nottingham Forest for 200 grand a week. Surely he'd be a big fat fish in a small pond. He'd be their best player by a country mile. Nah. He can't even get in the team. He looked like a giant coup in the summer, but 0 goals and 0 assists in 15 league games. And now he's played just 13 minutes since December, which was in a 4-0 defeat to West Ham. Oh, I bet he'll have enjoyed that one. Probably went home that night and felt like jamming a spoon into his thigh. Southampton Mislav Orsic. Wasn't Mislav Orsic supposed to be good? You know, the rocket Croatian superstar who netted a European hat-trick against Spurs. And this season, he backed the Champions League winner against Chelsea, which effectively got Thomas Tuchel the sack. And so he gets a £6 million move to Southampton and has been given 6 minutes on the pitch. 6! For a team 19th in the league. This man scored 91 goals in his last 5 seasons for Dinamo Zagreb. And yet Ruben Sanchez is treating him like an undercooked shepherd's pie. I don't get it. Is he good or not? Tottenham Fraser Forster. Fraser Forster's form has dramatically dipped throughout his career. I've honestly lost track of what version he currently is at Tottenham. He is a Jekyll and Hyde goalie. It's hard to keep up. He was a scruffy 3rd choice Newcastle United goalie who went to Norwich and in his first 2 months in League One got sent off against Gillingham and then chucked in a howler against Leeds. Surely he was just a teapot goalie who belonged stacking shelves in Sainsbury's, right? But no, then his career took off for Norwich, Celtic, and soon he was an outstanding, unbelievable Premier League #1 for Southampton. He went to the World Cup with England in Brazil. By 2016, he was on Chelsea's shopping list. Then his form fell off a cliff. He barely played for the Saints for 3 years, not even when the other goalies were losing 9-0. But towards the end of last season, he got back in the team. His confidence and form flooded back into his face, and now he's keeping clean sheets against AC Milan in the Champions League. The man's career has been a roller coaster. I generally, to this day, don't know how good he is. I don't have a clue. He confuses me. West Ham Alphonse Areola. Alphonse Areola is a quality goalkeeper. He's a 30-year-old world champion with France, but why does he want his life to be like this? He lost his place early doors at PSG, chose to move to Real Madrid on loan, where he was never going to play in front of Thibaut Courtois. He was on loan at West Ham last year, played once in the league, and yet signed a 5-year contract to play second fiddle to Lucas Fabianski. I would understand if he was a young 23-year-old, but he's in his 30s. He's just 7 years younger than Fabianski. And now he's contracted to West Ham until he's 35? What a waste. Wolves Diego Costa. Diego Costa is only 34. How was he now this bad at football? He was an absolute Chelsea superstar, an intimidating menace. But now, he's not as threatening as a blind cat. Just, what happened? Anyway, that's what do you think? What do you think? Let me know. What player confuses you? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, always. I'll talk to you in a while.